Hi, Rich Leiter here, and welcome to The Naked Booktuber. There are some books which are very difficult to review. They're very difficult to review due to the inflammatory or provocative or controversial nature of their subject matter. So that when one begins talking about them, this applies to all of art, but I'm speaking particularly of books now, that when one begins to talk about them, one can't simply evaluate the book based on the book's own artistic or literary merits. The center of attention migrates into extra artistic matters, either the political realm or the religious realm or the social commentary realm, something like that. And the book becomes a kind of cause célèbre that people either rally around or decry against. And I don't think that that's the way to read a book. I think a book should be read purely on its artistic or merits or lack thereof. Let me give you a couple of examples. When I was about 13 or so, I remember that I used to go on walks with my father, and my father would sometimes love to discuss books with me, whatever current book he happened to be reading. One day he happened to be discussing The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka, and he really loved this book. He loved the whole idea of a character waking up in the morning and being turned into an enormous bug or cockroach. And so he talked about this. I didn't really care to talk about it one way or the other, but, I was only 13. So I kind of danced to his tune. And it occurred to me that the only reason, or the prime reason why my father had decided to pick up The Metamorphosis and read it was because Franz Kafka was a Jew. He was Jewish. And my father was Jewish, as am I. I don't consider myself Jewish. I'm not a practitioner of Judaism anymore. But ethnically speaking, I consider myself Jewish. This is the reason, the primary reason why he decided to pick up this book, because it was written by a Jew, and so I guess directly or indirectly it illustrated the glories of Judaism in some vague, indistinct way. He had a lot of books written which were great books. Like he had Herzog by Saul Bellow. He had Bellow, a lot of Bellow. He had Philip Roth. I think he had Portnoy's Complaint or The Breast. A couple of Bellow's books, Roth's books. But he was a very religious person, and he sort of based his selection of reading material on the ethnicity of the author, in this case Jewish. An author being Jewish. And let me give you another example. Fast forward about 25 years. I'm now working as a civil servant, as a state auditor in the World Trade Center, no less. And, when we weren't out in the field auditing income maintenance centers, welfare centers, we would be back at the home office at the World Trade Center, and we would all sit at desks at very close quarters to one another. You could very easily hear whatever was being spoken by the auditor in front of you at his desk or her desk, in back of you, to the side of you. You were constantly listening to everybody's bullshit, whatever it was, everybody's gossip. You couldn't escape it. And there was a guy in back of me who was a devout Catholic, Roman Catholic. I don't remember how I got that information, but everybody knew it. He was a very devout Roman Catholic. And I really had nothing to do with this guy. I wasn't interested in him just as a person. I mean, there was no click between us. We weren't friends or buddies or pals. We never worked together on an audit. And sometimes, there was so much time in between audits, downtime, just doing nothing. You could spend a whole day at the home office doing nothing but sitting at your desk. And what I like to do to amuse myself, to pass the time, was I like to get a book out of the local library there and get a box of crayons, bring it to work with me, and sort of surreptitiously, when my supervisors weren't in the vicinity, I would try to copy a picture with my crayons. That's kind of how I passed the time. So one day I'm drawing a picture. I picked out a book by Georges Rouault, or Rouault, I don't know how you pronounce it, and I was copying one of his pictures. And all of a sudden, in the back of me, I hear this devout Roman Catholic fellow state auditor saying, "Oh, Rouault! Oh, he suddenly perked up. And I realized the only reason why he perked up, I think this is probably the only time that he ever spoke to me, was because Georges Rouault was a Roman Catholic. So it was the same kind of thing. He was kind of interested in the painting or the picture I was copying, purely based on the religion of the artist. So to me, this is very, very problematic. I don't believe in reading books based on the ethnicity of the author, or the religious beliefs of the author, the political beliefs of the author. I believe on reading a work of fiction or looking at a painting based purely upon the skill, the craftsmanship of that person, the peculiar way they have of saying something, and judging it purely on those artistic merits. But as I say, not everybody reads that way. A lot of people don't read that way. And so this is why I say that I find it very, very difficult to review The End of the Affair by Graham Greene. Because The End of the Affair by Graham Greene has been labeled. I don't know if was labeled by him or just by other people who love to label things. It has been labeled as a quote-unquote Catholic novel, because Catholicism enters very, very heavily into this novel. And so immediately, you're going to have people who love this book, not because it was well written, if it was well written, but merely because it was written about Catholicism and the whole notion of the main character battling with the notion of, is there a God or is there not a God? And that's all that they see. And so it's very difficult for me to review a novel like this without alluding to my own personal religious feelings. And so I'm going to try not to, but I can't promise you that I won't. And I can't promise you that there won't be spoilers in this. There may and there may not be. I mean, I'm speaking extemporaneously, and, I can't work around whether I'm going to do a spoiler or not. So be warned. Okay, so and I have not read anything before by Graham Greene. I have heard wonderful, wonderful things about him. I think I saw a movie, I think, that was based on one of his books, The Ugly American. Was that written by him? That's it, but I know nothing else about Graham Greene except that he's often touted as a very, very good writer, so I figured, why not read about the end of the affair? I mean, I just finished reading Giovanni's Room, which is kind of about an affair, and I said, let's continue in this vein, the affair vein, the love affair vein. So I picked up this novel. Okay, I had very, very mixed feelings about this novel. I think it was a very, very well written novel, for the most part, an exceptionally well written novel. But I have some reservations about it, which hopefully I'll be able to explain to you. What's the plot of this novel? Okay, the plot of the novel is simple, and yet at the same time it's a little bit complicated. It's really about the obsessive love of the main character named Bendrix, for a married woman. Bendrix is not married, but the woman is married, and her name is Sarah. And it takes place in 1944, during the war years. Bendrix has this very, very obsessive love for Sarah. He loves her madly. She loves him madly. They have the greatest sex you could possibly imagine. But it's not just a physical relationship. They really do, care for each other on an emotional level very deeply. And yet at the same time, this main character, Bendrix, is he's kind of like an Othello without the Iago. He's constantly jealous of her. He's constantly, sabotaging the relation, making himself and her and Sarah miserable by his obsessiveness and his possessiveness and his jealousy. So and it traces the history of their affair. And that basically is the heart of it, the affair. It's throughout the end of the affair. Now, what complicates it a little bit is that apparently Bendrix and Sarah cease having their physical relationship sometime in 1944. However, Bendrix is still, in his mind, sort of carrying on an emotional affair with Sarah. He still loves her, and she still loves him. And he's still obsessed, even though he's not seeing her anymore. He's obsessed with wondering whether she has a new lover or new lovers or who she's carrying on with. So much so that he actually, this is 2 years after he has stopped seeing her, he actually hires a private investigator to shadow her and to give him weekly reports on her whereabouts to confirm or repudiate her other extramarital affairs. And there's also a character, Henry. Henry is the person that Sarah is married to. He's a civil servant, and he's kind of portrayed as a kind of a dupe, kind of a dupe who can't really satisfy Sarah. Physically, he's a very stiff character. His character actually changes later on, but so he is being duped. He never suspects for a moment that Bendrix, who he knows, has been carrying on an affair with Sarah. That's the bare bones of it. Now, here's one more plot detail that you have to know. I don't think this is a spoiler. In 1944, when they are still having their physical relationship, this is right at the time in England, this takes place in England, when the Blitz occurs, when the Germans start shooting the V-1 rockets into London, and the buzz bombs. The buzz bombing begins. And so one night or one day, Sarah and Bendrix are in Bendrix's flat, having just made love, and a V-1 rocket hits very nearby, demolishing most of the building in which Bendrix's flat is located. And at this point, Sarah, and he is going downstairs to the basement to the shelter, and so they separate momentarily as the bomb hits. And Sarah makes this solemn vow to herself, to God, even though she doesn't believe in God, and even though she is not a Catholic. She makes a solemn vow to God, and she prays to God, if you spare him, if you allow Bendrix, my lover, to live, if he hasn't been killed by this buzz bomb, I promise you that I will stop having a relationship with him. And as it turns out, Bendrix does live. He wasn't killed by the bomb. And so she stops seeing him to keep her vow to God, a God that she doesn't believe in, but that she mysteriously vows to. And this is why, from 1944, Bendrix doesn't know this, but he wonders why she stopped seeing him. He's suspicious Bendrix is thinking that, oh well, she's stopped loving me and she's having a relationship with somebody else now, the slut. But no, it's because she's made a solemn vow to God, and so she stopped seeing him from 1944 to 1946. And he is still obsessed with her, and the novel goes on at that, with that in mind. And now at this point, this is where my objections to the novel begin. Because from this point on in the novel, and this takes place about halfway through the novel, this where we learn that Sarah has taken this solemn vow. At this point in the novel becomes very, very heavy in terms of God and about religion and Catholicism. Scattered and littered throughout the whole novel, it's kind of on every page of the novel, the issue of, does God exist? And, do I don't love God, I hate God, but if I hate God, then that must mean that I really love God. This kind of thinking saturates the novel from this point on. Bendrix doesn't believe in God. Sarah doesn't believe in God, but she does believe in God. And Sarah's not a Catholic, but she wants to be a Catholic. The main point I'm trying to say is the novel becomes saturated with this issue or these issues, and it becomes, actually very inflammatory. I mean, you begin forming sides. What side of the line are you on at this point in the novel? Are you pro-God or are you anti-God? Are you a Catholic or are you not a Catholic? Are you a believer or are you not a believer? I mean, these issues, these extra artistic issues immediately confront you. And this is why I suspect so many people tout this novel as being such a great novel, because it's in sync with their pro-God, pro-Catholic, pro-religion beliefs. And this is where it kind of goes off the rails for me. There's a long section in the middle of the book. We find out that Sarah has been keeping a secret diary. And Bendrix discovers this diary, or else his private investigator discovers it and hands it over to Bendrix, and Bendrix reads it. And in reading it, he realizes that no, Sarah didn't fall out of love with him, but on the contrary, she still loves him just as much as he loves her, except she made this solemn vow to God. And he starts reading the diary, and we read the middle section of this book. There's a long, long, long section which is just many pages of her diary that we read. That's it, verbatim. And the diary is, I didn't care for the diary at all. I found that this sabotaged the book for me. Reading this diary, I felt that that Sarah's thoughts, the way she is battling her decision to stop seeing Bendrix because God has spared her. I find her battling with herself, wanting to go back to seeing him and not wanting to, and wondering why God is so hard on her and why she doesn't believe in him, but she does believe in him because she must believe in him because Bendrix is saved now. And she goes on and on and on, and it reminds me very much of these sophomoric all-night conversations which I used to have in college that were so open-ended and they went nowhere, and ultimately they were as boring as hell. And I found this as boring as hell. I found it extremely trite and mundane, and it was sort of like, for me, it was like listening to fingernails being scratched across a chalkboard to have to listen to more than 3 or 4 pages of Sarah's diary. So I thought this was a tactical error on Graham Greene's part, in just giving us verbatim the huge excerpt of the diary. Of course, the reason he does that is he wants us to realize the great emotional turmoil Sarah is going through, how she is in her dark night of the soul right now, and he probably thought that the best way to show the dark night of the soul is by just showing us part of her journal or her diary. I found it extremely insufferable. Another part of this book from this point on that I did not like, and again, I'm trying to be, not talk about my own religious beliefs, although you really can't help it to a certain extent with this kind of divisive material. Sarah, there's a great deal of talk in this book about suffering and the glorification of suffering. I mean, Sarah, we learn, is in torment about believing in God and not believing in Him, and so is Bendrix. And it sort of seems there is this very strong theme in the book that in order to know God, one has to suffer, and one has to sort of scar oneself, metaphorically speaking, in order to know God. I mean, here Bendrix and Sarah were having this red-hot, great relationship, and Sarah just decides, we don't even know why she decided to take this solemn vow to stop seeing him. She decides to screw up the relationship and make them both miserable. She's miserable now, although sometimes she isn't miserable. She seems to be at peace, but she's not at peace. It's very ambivalent. And Bendrix is just in torment because he doesn't know until he reads the diary why she's doing this. It's like somehow to the aroma of this novel, the sentiment of it is, if you want to know God, you just have to suffer. And you have to screw up everything. But that way you get to know God. And I frankly found this very, very distasteful and very, very arbitrary. I said, why on earth? In a way, these two characters are the most miserable characters I've ever read in a book. And it's all self-inflicted misery. They did it all to themselves, as far as I'm concerned. And to me, this is kind of gets intermingled with the whole notion of religion. Suffering, the glorification of suffering. I mean, for God's sakes, why did Sarah, who is not a believer, she apparently is not even a Catholic yet. She wants to be, we learn later. She's thinking about it. She's flirting with the idea. She consults with a priest, I believe, but she never really is even a Catholic. And yet she gets this crazy idea that she has to stop seeing her lover, who she loves passionately, physically and emotionally, and he loves her. Why? Why does she do this? I mean, if she wants to show her thanks to God for sparing her lover in this V1 bombing attack, why doesn't she do something real in the real world? Why doesn't she, if she wants to show her gratitude towards the Lord, why doesn't she volunteer at a children's hospital for children who are who have been burned, for burn victims or something like that, something real, something positive? Why doesn't she become a nurse or do something to alleviate the suffering of her fellow human beings? The whole sentiment of this is extreme. Bendrix, this is a criticism of the novel. Bendrix is an extremely self-absorbed, he's a very sharp guy, Bendrix. He's a writer, like Graham Greene. And he makes a lot of very, very amusing, humorous, insightful comments. He has a lot of thoughts, insightful thoughts about human nature, about the nature of love, about religion. He's a very sharp, shrewd guy. And he talks a lot about writing, too. The craft of writing, which is wonderful. But my God, I've never met such a self-absorbed character. I mean, all he spends his time doing is wondering about whether Sarah is cheating on him even after he has stopped seeing her. His whole world revolves around this. It's extremely self-absorbed in a way that kind of grates on me after a while. And Sarah is equally self-absorbed. Sarah seems to be completely self-absorbed with the notion of the glorification of suffering. Should I believe in him? Should I not believe in him? Do I believe in him? Do I not believe in him? Why do I have to do this? Why can't I go back to my lover, who I love very much? And why do I have to have this vow? But I love this vow, and I don't love it. Like I say, it's very sophomoric, and it's extremely self-absorbed, and there's only so much that I can take of it. But I read the whole thing through. Now, as I said before several times now, if you were a Catholic or you were a believer, you're going to be very, very sympathetic to this whole dark night of the soul stuff. Me, I personally found it, some of it was okay, but some of it was a little bit too much for me. But again, it's going to be very hard for a lot of people to talk intelligently about this book because the fabric of it is so interwoven with the fabric of religion and God and Catholicism and suffering. That's all I'm saying. The pros of this book are that Graham Greene is an extremely good writer. I have to admit it. Notwithstanding all of this glorification of suffering and all of this sophomoric dark night of the soul stuff, he is a hell of a writer. There's no question about it. He has several, his characters, there aren't many characters in the book, but they're all good. They're all good. They're all well written. The cuckolded husband, Henry, is excellently written. All of the minor characters are excellently written. So it's good. I did have a lot of trouble. He does have a lot of flashbacks, Graham Greene, about 1944 when he's still having a physical relationship with Sarah. He flashes back to that, and then he flashes 2 years later to the present time when they've ended their physical relationship and he's hired a private investigator to shadow her. I mean, I had a lot of trouble with this going back and forth. That was a little bit too much for me at times. And also, a lot of people may have trouble with this affair within an affair stuff. This, it's like he had an affair with her, he stopped seeing her physically, but mentally, emotionally, he's still having an affair with her, and she still loves him, and they actually do see each other socially every once in a while. So it's a little ambivalent about this relationship that's ended, but really hasn't ended also. That is a little bit tricky. So another thing about this novel is that I don't know whether this is a pro of the novel or a con, but Bendrix is one of the most mean-spirited, as I say, self-absorbed, but also very mean-spirited characters that I've read. I mean, he's not quite as monstrous, perhaps, as Humbert Humbert and Lolita, but he's a pretty mean-spirited, cunning, self-absorbed guy. He's kind of contemptuous of a lot of people. He has kind of a contemptuous nature for most of the novel, which is, I guess, kind of part and parcel of being a writer. He kind of feels that he's above a lot of people. He's constantly talking about their eccentricities, their oddities. But he's just a very, very sharp writer, too. Like I say, it's just very intermingled, the pros and the cons of the book. Apparently, Graham Greene has written 3 other so-called Catholic novels. I'm probably not going to read them. So I appreciate the great skill that went into the writing of this novel. It's not an easy feat that he accomplished. But boy, oh boy, I just don't think I'm going to read another one of Graham Greene's novels. Or at least if I entertain the idea, it's not going to be for a very, very long time. I think the next novel I'm going to read is not going to be Graham Greene. I think it's going to read notes. I'm going to read Notes from the Underground. Again, about another kind of spiteful, lonely person, I guess. I haven't read him in 60 years, but I think I'm going to read Notes from the Underground next. So that's my review. I'm trying to be as fair about the novel as possible. But it was a difficult novel to review. Thanks.